The morning sun cast long shadows across the military training grounds as Sarah Chun adjusted her combat boots one final time. The leather felt foreign against her ankles, still stiff from the supply depot. Everything about this moment felt surreal. 6 months ago, she had been working double shifts at a factory in Detroit, her hands permanently stained with industrial lubricant, and her dreams seemingly as distant as the stars. Now, she stood among 47 other recruits, about to begin the most challenging military training program in the country. The Special Operations Selection Course had a reputation that preceded it like thunder before lightning. Only 12% of candidates completed the full program. Of those who did, fewer than half earned deployment assignments. The statistics weren't lost on Sarah, but numbers had never intimidated her. Growing up as the youngest of 5 children in a household where every dollar stretched thin, she had learned early that determination could overcome almost any obstacle. What she hadn't anticipated was the immediate hostility that greeted her arrival. The other recruits had sized her up within minutes of her stepping off the transport bus. At 5 feet 4 inches and weighing barely 120 pounds, Sarah looked more like someone who belonged in an office than on a battlefield. Her quiet demeanor only seemed to reinforce their assumptions about her unsuitability for the program. "Hey, Pixie," called out Marcus Webb, a towering former college football player whose biceps strained against his regulation shirt. "You sure you didn't take a wrong turn? The administrative offices are back that way." His gesture toward the main building was accompanied by snickers from several nearby recruits. Sarah turned her attention to adjusting her pack straps, refusing to engage. She had learned long ago that words were often just noise, and action spoke with far more authority than any verbal response could provide. This philosophy had served her well in civilian life, where she had quietly outperformed colleagues who spent more time talking about their capabilities than demonstrating them. The first week of training proved to be an exercise in endurance that went far beyond physical demands. The instructors, led by a granite-faced sergeant named Rodriguez, pushed every recruit to their breaking point through a combination of sleep deprivation, intense physical exercise, and psychological pressure. Sarah found herself struggling with certain aspects of the training, particularly the rope climbing exercises that favored candidates with longer limbs and greater upper body mass. Her difficulties became a source of entertainment for some of her fellow recruits. During meals, she would overhear whispered conversations about how long she might last. The betting pool that emerged gave her less than 2 weeks before voluntary withdrawal. Marcus Webb had become the unofficial spokesperson for those who questioned her presence, making increasingly pointed comments about her performance. "I'm just saying," Webb announced loudly during one evening meal. "When we're deployed and lives are on the line, do we really want someone who can't even complete a basic rope climb watching our backs?" His audience nodded along, their agreement as predictable as sunrise. Sarah continued eating her regulation meal, her expression unchanged. She had perfected this mask of indifference over years of facing skepticism and dismissal. In high school, guidance counselors had steered her toward more realistic career paths. At the factory, supervisors had initially assigned her to the lightest duties despite her request for more challenging work. Each time, she had proven herself through persistence and competence rather than confrontation. The physical training intensified during the second week. Long-distance runs became the norm, with full pack loads that tested every recruit's limits. Sarah discovered that while she might struggle with exercises requiring brute strength, her endurance proved exceptional. She could maintain a steady pace for hours while larger candidates began to falter. Her breathing remained controlled when others gasped for air. Her footsteps stayed light and efficient while others began to stumble. These small victories went largely unnoticed by her critics, who remained focused on her more visible struggles. During hand-to-hand combat training, her size disadvantage became apparent quickly. Sparring sessions often ended with Sarah on the ground, though she noticed something that others seemed to miss. Each time she fell, she got back up more quickly than before. Each technique she learned, she absorbed completely. Her instructors began pairing her with different opponents, and gradually, her defensive skills improved dramatically. The psychological evaluation portion of the training proved to be where Sarah's quiet nature became both an asset and a liability. The military psychologists were trained to identify candidates who could maintain mental stability under extreme stress. Sarah's responses to their tests and interviews revealed a level of emotional control that impressed the evaluators. However, her reluctance to engage in the verbal sparring that characterized many group exercises led some instructors to question her leadership potential. Leadership isn't just about following orders, Sergeant Rodriguez explained during one particularly challenging session. It's about inspiring confidence in others and making your voice heard when it matters most. His eyes seemed to linger on Sarah as he spoke, though his expression revealed nothing about his assessment of her potential. The third week brought the introduction of weapons training, an area where Sarah's background proved unexpectedly relevant. Her father had been an avid hunter, and she had spent countless childhood hours learning proper shooting stance, breath control, and trigger discipline. While other recruits struggled with the basics of marksmanship, Sarah's natural ability with firearms became immediately apparent. Her first day on the rifle range silenced several of her critics temporarily. Shot after shot found its mark with mechanical precision. The shooting instructor, a weathered veteran named Corporal Hayes, stopped behind her position to observe her technique more closely. When the session ended, Sarah's target showed a grouping that would have been impressive for a seasoned marksman, let alone a recruit in her first week of weapons training. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Hayes asked, genuine curiosity replacing his usual stern demeanor. "My father taught me," Sarah replied simply. "Started when I was 8 years old." Marcus Webb's reaction to her shooting performance was predictable. "Anyone can hit a stationary target," he muttered to his growing circle of supporters. "Let's see how she does when someone's shooting back." The comment stung more than Sarah cared to admit, but she channeled that energy into further improvement. During evening hours, when other recruits socialized or rested, she could be found in the training areas, practicing movement drills and studying tactical manuals. Her dedication didn't go entirely unnoticed by the instructional staff, though their observations remained carefully neutral. Week 4 introduced night training exercises that tested recruits' ability to operate effectively in low-light conditions. The combination of navigation challenges, stealth requirements, and time pressure proved overwhelming for several candidates, who withdrew from the program rather than face further elimination. Sarah found herself adapting well to the darkness, her patient nature serving her well in situations that required careful observation and methodical movement. During one particularly challenging night exercise, recruits were required to infiltrate a mock enemy position and gather intelligence without being detected. Sarah's approach differed markedly from that of her more aggressive colleagues. While they attempted to use speed and boldness to overcome the challenge, she moved with deliberate caution, taking advantage of natural cover and timing her movements to coincide with environmental distractions. Her success in completing the exercise, while several more celebrated candidates failed, did little to change the prevailing opinion about her suitability for special operations. If anything, her achievements seemed to intensify the criticism from those who remained determined to see her fail. Getting lucky on a few training exercises doesn't make someone special forces material, Webb proclaimed during a group discussion that Sarah pretended not to overhear. When the real pressure hits, natural ability shows through all the preparation in the world. The comment revealed more about Webb's own insecurities than about Sarah's capabilities, though this distinction was lost on most of his audience. Sarah had learned to recognize the difference between criticism based on legitimate concerns and attacks motivated by personal discomfort with challenges to established hierarchies. As the first month of training concluded, the initial roster of 48 recruits had been reduced to 31. The departures included some who had been considered early favorites for successful completion. The unpredictable nature of the selection process was beginning to dawn on the remaining candidates, though this realization manifested differently in different individuals. Sarah used the growing pressure as motivation to push herself even harder. Her physical conditioning continued to improve, and her tactical understanding deepened with each exercise. More importantly, she began to develop the mental resilience that would prove crucial in the challenges ahead. Each mockery and dismissal became another piece of fuel for the quiet fire that burned within her. The instructors maintained their professional detachment, offering little indication of their individual assessments of each recruit's progress. Sergeant Rodriguez's evaluations remained cryptic, focusing on technical performance rather than potential for advancement. However, Sarah began to notice subtle changes in how certain instructors interacted with her. Questions became more probing, expectations seemed to increase, and opportunities for additional challenges appeared more frequently. Week 5 brought the introduction of advanced tactical scenarios that required recruits to demonstrate not just individual competence, but also the ability to function effectively as part of a team. These exercises proved to be where Sarah's quiet leadership style began to emerge. While other candidates competed for command positions and vocal recognition, Sarah focused on understanding the mission requirements and identifying the most effective approaches to achieving objectives. Her contributions to team success often went unrecognized by her fellow recruits, but the instructional staff began taking note of her ability to identify critical details that others missed and to anticipate potential problems before they became serious obstacles. These observations remained carefully documented, but unexpressed, maintaining the competitive pressure that was an essential component of the selection process. The mockery continued, though it began to take on a different character as Sarah's competence became increasingly difficult to dismiss. What had started as confident ridicule was beginning to include undertones of uncertainty and defensive aggression. Marcus Webb's comments became more pointed and personal, suggesting that his opposition to her presence was becoming less about military capability and more about personal pride. Some people just don't belong in certain roles, he declared during a heated discussion about team composition for an upcoming exercise. It's not personal, it's just reality. We all have our limitations. Sarah's response, when it finally came, surprised everyone who heard it. You're absolutely right, she said quietly, meeting Webb's gaze directly. We do all have limitations. The question is whether we let them define us or whether we find ways to work around them. The comment was delivered without malice or challenge, but its impact rippled through the group like a stone dropped into still water. For the first time since training began, Sarah had spoken up in a way that couldn't be ignored or dismissed. The words hung in the air, creating a moment of uncomfortable silence that spoke more loudly than any argument could have. The exchange marked a subtle but significant shift in the dynamics of the training group. Sarah's quiet confidence was beginning to assert itself, and her consistent performance was becoming impossible to ignore. The foundation was being laid for revelations that would challenge every assumption her critics had made about her character and capabilities. As the first phase of training drew to a close, the stage was set for demonstrations of strength that would silence the laughter and transform skepticism into respect. The wounds that had made her the target of mockery were about to reveal themselves as sources of power that few could understand and even fewer could match. The second phase of training introduced elements that would separate the merely capable from the truly exceptional. Week 6 began with psychological warfare scenarios designed to test each recruit's ability to maintain mission focus under extreme stress. Sarah found herself facing challenges that went far beyond anything she had anticipated when she first decided to pursue military service. The transformation in her approach to these challenges reflected lessons learned not in any classroom or training manual, but in the harsh realities of her childhood. Growing up in a household where emotional volatility was as common as morning coffee had taught her to read subtle signs of impending conflict and to navigate turbulent situations without escalating tensions. These skills, developed out of necessity rather than choice, proved invaluable in military scenarios that required both tactical awareness and emotional intelligence. During simulation exercises designed to replicate prisoner interrogation scenarios, Sarah's performance stood out in ways that surprised both her fellow recruits and the instructional staff. While other candidates responded to psychological pressure with either aggressive defiance or visible breakdown, Sarah demonstrated a level of mental fortitude that seemed almost supernatural. Her responses remained consistent regardless of the intensity of the pressure applied, and her ability to maintain cognitive function under stress impressed even the most skeptical observers. The secret behind her resilience lay in experiences that she had never shared with anyone, not even during the psychological evaluation sessions that were part of the recruitment process. The scars on her arms, carefully concealed beneath long sleeves even during the hottest training days, told a story of survival that went far beyond typical adolescent struggles. They were reminders of a period in her life when enduring pain and maintaining silence had been matters of life and death. Her father's drinking problem had escalated during her teenage years, transforming their household into a war zone where unpredictability reigned supreme. Sarah had learned to become invisible during his worst episodes, to absorb verbal and physical abuse without reaction, and to protect her younger siblings through her own sacrifice. The burns on her forearms were souvenirs from one particularly violent night when she had shielded her 8-year-old brother from their father's rage. These experiences had forged a mental toughness that military training couldn't replicate or break down. When drill sergeants screamed in her face, their voices seemed almost gentle compared to the fury she had faced at home. When physical challenges pushed her beyond normal limits, the pain felt manageable compared to what she had endured in silence for years. Her apparent indifference to pressure wasn't callousness or lack of feeling. It was the hard-won wisdom of someone who had survived much worse and emerged stronger. Marcus Webb's campaign against her continued, but his approach began to change as her competence became undeniable. Unable to attack her performance directly, he shifted to personal criticisms and attempts to undermine her credibility through social isolation. His influence over other recruits remained strong, but cracks were beginning to appear in his coalition as Sarah's consistent excellence forced even his supporters to question their assumptions. "There's something not right about her," Webb confided to his closest allies during a late-night conversation that Sarah pretended not to overhear from her nearby bunk. "Normal people don't act like that under pressure. She's either hiding something or there's something wrong with her mentally." His instinct about Sarah hiding something was correct, though his interpretation of what that meant was completely wrong. The strength that he found unsettling wasn't a sign of mental instability. It was evidence of a resilience forged in fires that would have destroyed weaker spirits entirely. Week 7 brought advanced marksmanship training that required precision under combat conditions. Moving targets, time pressure, and environmental obstacles combined to create shooting scenarios that tested every aspect of a marksman's skill. Sarah's performance in these exercises began to attract attention that extended beyond the immediate training cadre. During one particularly challenging exercise, recruits were required to engage multiple targets while advancing through a complex obstacle course. The combination of physical exertion, mental pressure, and technical precision proved overwhelming for most candidates. Sarah's approach to the challenge demonstrated a level of tactical thinking that impressed the observing instructors. Rather than rushing through the course in an attempt to complete it quickly, she moved with deliberate precision, taking time to establish proper shooting positions and ensuring each shot was placed accurately before moving to the next target. Her final time was average, but her accuracy rate was unprecedented. Every single shot had found its mark, an achievement that hadn't been recorded in the previous 3 years of the program. Sergeant Rodriguez made a notation in his evaluation file that would later prove significant, though at the time it seemed like routine documentation. Recruit Chin demonstrates exceptional composure under pressure and maintains technical proficiency regardless of external stressors. Recommend for advanced marksmanship evaluation. The recommendation would normally have been processed through standard channels, but Circumstances were about to arise that would bring Sarah's unique capabilities to the attention of individuals far above the typical training hierarchy. The military intelligence community had been monitoring the training program for recruits who demonstrated specific skill sets that aligned with classified operational requirements. Sarah's combination of psychological resilience, technical precision, and ability to remain unnoticed made her an ideal candidate for specialized assignments that required operatives who could function independently in high-stress environments. These opportunities were rarely discussed openly, and most recruits completed their training without ever knowing such positions existed. Week 8 introduced urban warfare scenarios that tested recruits' ability to adapt military tactics to civilian environments. The exercises took place in a mock city constructed specifically for training purposes, complete with multi-story buildings, narrow alleyways, and civilian role players who added complexity to every scenario. Sarah's performance in urban environments revealed capabilities that even she hadn't fully realized she possessed. Her childhood experience of navigating dangerous neighborhoods and avoiding potential threats had developed spatial awareness and tactical instincts that translated perfectly to military applications. She moved through the training city like someone born to urban warfare, anticipating ambush points and identifying cover opportunities with an intuition that couldn't be taught. During one exercise, her squad was tasked with clearing a building believed to contain hostile forces while minimizing risk to civilian occupants. The scenario was designed to test decision-making under extreme pressure, with split-second choices determining mission success or catastrophic failure. Sarah's approach to the challenge demonstrated thinking that went beyond conventional tactical training. She identified patterns in the building's layout that suggested optimal entry points and movement routes. Her suggestions for squad positioning maximized effectiveness while minimizing exposure to potential threats. Most importantly, she noticed details that others missed: acoustic signatures that indicated occupant locations, structural features that could provide concealment, and timing opportunities that allowed for coordinated action. The exercise concluded with complete mission success and 0 simulated casualties, an outcome that was noted by multiple observers. Sarah's contributions to the success were documented in detail, though she remained unaware of the attention her performance was generating among training supervisors and visiting officials. Marcus Webb's reaction to her continued success became increasingly desperate. His attempts to undermine her credibility took on a more aggressive character, though his efforts were beginning to backfire as other recruits started recognizing the disparity between his criticisms and Sarah's actual performance. "She's making the rest of us look bad," he complained to anyone who would listen. "This isn't about fair competition anymore. She's getting special treatment from the instructors." The accusation of favoritism was particularly ironic given that Sarah had received less encouragement and support than almost any other recruit in the program. Her success came despite, not because of any special consideration from the training staff. The instructors maintained professional neutrality that bordered on cold indifference, offering no more guidance or assistance to her than to any other candidate. Week 9 brought psychological evaluation sessions that delved deeper into each recruit's mental state and motivational structure. The interviews were conducted by experienced military psychologists who were trained to identify both strengths and potential vulnerabilities that might affect operational performance. Sarah's interview revealed aspects of her character that had remained hidden even from those who had worked closely with her during training. When asked about her motivations for pursuing military service, her response demonstrated a depth of purpose that impressed the evaluating psychologist. "I want to be in a position where my actions can make a difference," she explained quietly. "I've spent most of my life feeling powerless to protect the people who matter to me. Military service offers the opportunity to develop capabilities that could prevent others from experiencing that same helplessness." The psychologist noted the mature perspective behind her response, as well as the emotional control she maintained while discussing obviously painful memories. Further questioning revealed a level of self-awareness and psychological resilience that was rarely encountered in recruits of her age and background. When asked about her relationships with fellow recruits, Sarah's response was both honest and diplomatic. Some people have concerns about my suitability for this program, she acknowledged. I understand their perspective, and I don't take their criticism personally. Everyone here is under tremendous pressure, and people react to stress in different ways. The psychological evaluation concluded with ratings that placed Sarah in the top percentile for mental stability, stress tolerance, and emotional maturity. These scores, combined with her technical performance evaluations, began to paint a picture of a recruit who possessed exceptional potential for specialized assignments. Week 10 introduced survival training scenarios that tested recruits' ability to sustain themselves and maintain operational capability in hostile environments with minimal resources. The exercises took place in wilderness areas that simulated deployment conditions, requiring candidates to demonstrate competence in navigation, resource procurement, and tactical movement while surviving on limited supplies. Sarah's performance during survival training revealed skills that she had learned during childhood camping trips with her grandfather, a Korean War veteran who had taught her wilderness survival techniques as part of her informal education. Her ability to identify edible plants, construct effective shelter, and navigate using natural landmarks impressed the survival instructors and provided clear evidence of her adaptability to challenging environments. More importantly, her behavior during group survival scenarios demonstrated leadership qualities that had been largely hidden during earlier phases of training. When other recruits struggled with the psychological challenges of isolation and deprivation, Sarah quietly took on support roles that helped maintain group morale and effectiveness. Her contributions weren't dramatic or attention-seeking, but they proved essential to the overall success of her unit's survival exercises. The completion of survival training marked the end of the second phase of the selection program. Of the 31 recruits who had begun this phase, only 18 remained. The attrition rate was accelerating as the challenges became more demanding and the psychological pressure intensified. Sarah's continued presence in the program was no longer surprising to anyone who had observed her performance objectively, though Marcus Webb and his remaining supporters continued to express skepticism about her long-term prospects. Their criticism had evolved from questioning her basic competence to challenging her suitability for the specialized roles that successful program graduates typically filled. Anyone can follow instructions and complete training exercises, Webb argued during a group discussion about future career prospects. But leadership in combat requires qualities that can't be measured in a training environment. Some people just don't have what it takes when lives are really on the line. His words would prove to be prophetic in ways he never intended. The third phase of training would provide opportunities for Sarah to demonstrate exactly what she was capable of when lives hung in the balance. And the results would challenge every assumption that had been made about her character and potential. The stage was set for revelations that would transform mockery into respect and demonstrate that true strength often emerges from sources that others cannot see or understand. Sarah's quiet confidence was about to be tested in ways that would reveal the full extent of her capabilities and silence her critics permanently. The third phase of training brought scenarios that blurred the line between simulation and reality. Week 11 introduced live-fire exercises where the margin for error disappeared entirely, and every decision carried consequences that extended far beyond personal advancement or elimination from the program. The remaining 18 recruits faced challenges that would test not just their individual capabilities, but their ability to function as a cohesive unit under conditions that approximated actual combat deployment. Sarah entered this phase with a quiet confidence that had been building steadily throughout her training. The mockery that had characterized her early weeks had diminished significantly, replaced by a grudging acknowledgement of her competence for most quarters. However, Marcus Webb and two remaining allies continued their campaign of skepticism, though their criticisms now focused more on leadership potential than basic capability. The first exercise of this phase involved a complex hostage rescue scenario that required precise coordination between multiple teams. Sarah found herself assigned to a 4-person unit that included Webb and two other recruits who had previously aligned themselves with his assessment of her unsuitability for special operations. The assignment was not coincidental. The instructional staff had deliberately created team compositions that would test interpersonal dynamics under pressure. The scenario involved civilians being held in a multi-story building by hostile forces, with intelligence suggesting the presence of explosive devices that could be triggered if the rescue attempt was detected prematurely. Success required careful planning, flawless execution, and the ability to adapt quickly when circumstances changed unexpectedly. During the planning phase, Sarah's contributions revealed tactical insights that impressed even her harshest critics. She identified potential approach routes that others had overlooked, anticipated likely defensive positions based on the building's layout, and suggested coordination protocols that would minimize the risk of friendly fire incidents. Her analysis was thorough, logical, and demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that went beyond standard training protocols. Webb's response to her input was predictably dismissive. "Planning is easy when you're not the one who has to execute under pressure," he muttered, though his criticism lacked the conviction it had carried in earlier encounters. The quality of Sarah's tactical analysis was becoming impossible to deny, even for those most invested in doubting her capabilities. The execution phase of the exercise began at dawn, with Sarah's team assigned to secure the building's upper floors while other units handled ground-level access and perimeter control. The approach required crossing open ground under simulated enemy observation, followed by a vertical assault that would test every aspect of their training. Sarah's performance during the approach phase demonstrated skills that had been developing throughout her training but were now fully manifested. She moved with a fluidity and precision that seemed almost supernatural, anticipating obstacles and adjusting her path to maintain optimal concealment. Her ability to read the terrain and identify cover opportunities proved exceptional, and her movement patterns provided guidance for the rest of her team. When the team reached the building's exterior, they encountered their first unexpected challenge. The intelligence briefing had indicated that the building's upper floors would be accessible through external fire escapes, but reconnaissance revealed that these routes had been compromised by simulated booby traps. Alternative entry methods would be required, and the team had only minutes to adapt their plan before the overall operation timeline became compromised. Sarah's response to this challenge revealed problem-solving abilities that went far beyond conventional training. She identified a drainage system that could provide concealed access to the building's roof, though the route would require technical climbing skills and precise timing to avoid detection by rooftop sentries. Her proposal was met with skepticism from Webb, who argued that the approach was too risky and technically demanding. "Just because you can identify a theoretical solution doesn't mean it's practical," he argued. "We need approaches that the whole team can execute successfully, not elaborate schemes that depend on perfect execution." Sarah's reply was characteristically quiet but definitive. "I can execute this approach alone and secure the entry point for the team. It's the only route that maintains surprise and keeps us within the operation timeline." The decision to allow her solo assault represented a significant moment in the exercise. For the first time since training began, Sarah was being entrusted with mission-critical responsibility that her teammates' success depended upon. The weight of that trust was not lost on her, nor was the opportunity it represented to demonstrate her true capabilities. Her ascent of the drainage system proved to be a masterpiece of technical skill and tactical awareness. She moved with deliberate precision, testing each handhold and foothold before committing her weight, while maintaining awareness of sentry positions and timing patterns. The combination of physical demands and mental pressure would have challenged experienced special operations personnel, yet Sarah negotiated the route with apparent ease. Upon reaching the roof, she encountered a scenario that the exercise designers had intended as a near-impossible challenge. Two sentries were positioned to provide overlapping coverage of all apparent access points, while motion sensors covered areas that couldn't be observed directly. Conventional approaches would almost certainly result in detection and mission failure. Sarah's solution demonstrated creative thinking that impressed the observing instructors. Rather than attempting to avoid or overcome the security measures, she used them to her advantage. She triggered a motion sensor deliberately in a location that would draw both sentries away from their posts, then used their predictable response pattern to access the building through a route that was temporarily unguarded. Her entry into the building marked the beginning of the most challenging phase of the exercise. The upper floors contained multiple rooms where hostages might be held, along with unknown numbers of hostile forces and potential booby traps. Sarah's task was to clear these areas methodically while maintaining communication with her team and preserving the option for rapid extraction if circumstances required it. The first room she entered contained 2 simulated hostages guarded by a single hostile force. The scenario required her to neutralize the threat without endangering the civilian role players, a challenge that tested both marksmanship skills and decision-making under pressure. Sarah's approach to the situation demonstrated tactical maturity that went beyond her training level. She spent several minutes observing the room through a partially open door, identifying the exact positions of all occupants and noting details that would affect her plan of action. The guard's weapon was positioned in a way that suggested he could threaten the hostages if he detected incoming assault, requiring an approach that would neutralize him before he could react. Sarah's execution was flawless. She entered the room with movements that were both swift and silent, engaging the target with precision that eliminated any possibility of return fire or collateral damage. The simulated hostages were secured and prepared for evacuation within minutes of her entry, demonstrating efficiency that impressed the monitoring instructors. The second room presented a more complex challenge. Multiple hostages, multiple guards, and evidence of explosive devices that could be triggered remotely. This scenario was designed to test recruits' ability to make split-second decisions when multiple variables created conflicting priorities. Conventional training suggested calling for backup and developing a coordinated assault plan, but the exercise timeline didn't allow for extended planning. Sarah's assessment of the situation revealed tactical insights that went beyond standard protocols. She identified patterns in the guards' behavior that suggested rotation schedules and communication procedures. More importantly, she noticed that the explosive devices were positioned in a way that suggested they were props rather than functional weapons, indicating that the exercise designers were testing decision-making rather than actual demolition skills. Her approach to clearing the room involved psychological tactics that had never been covered in formal training. She created a distraction that caused the guards to reposition themselves in ways that created opportunities for engagement, then executed a sequence of movements that neutralized all threats while maintaining the safety of the civilian role players. The successful completion of her solo mission allowed her team to proceed with the overall rescue operation, which concluded with complete success and 0 simulated casualties. Sarah's contributions to this success were documented extensively by the observing instructors, though the full significance of her performance wouldn't become apparent until later evaluations were completed. Webb's reaction to her success was conflicted. His long-standing criticism of her capabilities had been thoroughly undermined by her performance, yet his personal investment in being proven right made it difficult for him to acknowledge her achievements gracefully. His post-exercise comments reflected this internal struggle. She got lucky, he insisted, though his tone lacked conviction. One successful exercise doesn't prove anything about long-term reliability under pressure. The other team members were less invested in maintaining skepticism. Sarah's performance had directly contributed to their success, and their survival in the scenario had depended on her competence. Their attitudes toward her began to shift from skeptical tolerance to genuine respect. Week 12 brought psychological warfare scenarios that tested recruits' resistance to interrogation and ability to maintain operational security under extreme pressure. These exercises involved role-playing scenarios where recruits faced simulated capture and interrogation by hostile forces, with the goal of assessing their ability to protect sensitive information while maintaining psychological stability. Sarah's performance during these scenarios revealed the full extent of the mental resilience that had been developed during her difficult childhood. The interrogation techniques employed by the training staff, while intense and psychologically challenging, seemed almost mild compared to the emotional warfare she had endured at home. Her ability to maintain focus and resist psychological pressure impressed even the most experienced interrogation specialists. During one particularly challenging session, the interrogators employed techniques designed to exploit personal vulnerabilities and emotional triggers. They had studied each recruit's psychological profile and developed approaches tailored to individual weaknesses. Sarah's session focused on themes of isolation, worthlessness, and abandonment, areas that the psychologist had identified as potential pressure points based on her background. Her response to these attacks demonstrated emotional control that bordered on the supernatural. While other recruits showed visible signs of stress and psychological strain, Sarah maintained composure that never wavered. Her answers remained consistent regardless of the pressure applied, and her ability to compartmentalize emotional responses allowed her to function effectively even under extreme duress. The interrogation specialist conducting her session made notes that would later prove significant in high-level evaluations. Subject demonstrates exceptional resistance to psychological pressure and maintains cognitive function under extreme duress. Emotional control appears to be based on previous experience rather than training, suggesting natural resilience that cannot be replicated through conventional preparation. Week 13 introduced night operations that tested recruits' ability to function effectively in complete darkness while maintaining coordination with team members and achieving mission objectives. These scenarios required capabilities that went beyond individual competence to include communication skills, spatial awareness, and trust in teammates' abilities. Sarah's performance during night operations revealed capabilities that even she hadn't fully realized she possessed. Her childhood experience of navigating her household during her father's violent episodes had developed night vision and spatial awareness that translated perfectly to military applications. She could move through complete darkness with confidence and precision that impressed her instructors and teammates alike. During one complex night exercise, her unit was tasked with infiltrating an enemy position and gathering intelligence without being detected. The mission required crossing difficult terrain in complete darkness, avoiding patrol routes, and accessing a secured facility where sensitive documents were supposedly stored. Sarah's contributions to mission planning revealed understanding of night tactics that went beyond her formal training. She identified environmental factors that would affect visibility and movement, anticipated guard patrol patterns based on terrain features, and suggested approaches that would minimize the risk of detection while maximizing the chances of mission success. The execution of the mission demonstrated teamwork that reflected growing respect for Sarah's capabilities among her fellow recruits. Her teammates now sought her input on tactical decisions and trusted her judgment in critical situations. The transformation in their attitudes was particularly notable among those who had previously supported Marcus Webb's criticisms. The mission's success depended on Sarah's ability to navigate the most technically challenging portion of the infiltration route. She volunteered to scout ahead and secure access points that the rest of the team could use safely, accepting responsibility that placed mission success directly on her shoulders. Her movement through the enemy position was a masterclass in stealth and tactical awareness. She avoided detection while gathering detailed intelligence about guard positions, security measures, and facility layout. Her reconnaissance provided the information needed for the rest of the team to complete their mission successfully. The completion of night operations training marked another milestone in Sarah's journey from outcast to respected team member. Her consistent excellence under increasingly challenging conditions had forced even her harshest critics to acknowledge her capabilities, though full recognition of her potential still lay ahead. The stage was being set for a final revelation that would demonstrate the true extent of her strength and silence all remaining doubts about her suitability for special operations. The wounds that had made her a target of mockery were about to reveal themselves as the source of power that would transform her from an unlikely recruit into an exceptional warrior. The final phase of training brought challenges that tested not just individual competence, but the character traits that would determine success or failure in actual combat deployment. Week 14 introduced scenarios that required split-second decisions under extreme pressure, where the difference between success and catastrophic failure often came down to intangible qualities that couldn't be taught or measured through conventional testing. Sarah entered this phase with a confidence that had been building steadily throughout her training, though she remained characteristically quiet about her achievements. The transformation in how others perceived her had been gradual but unmistakable. Where once she had been dismissed as unsuited for military service, she was now recognized as one of the most capable recruits in the program. The change was particularly evident in Marcus Webb's behavior. His criticism of Sarah had evolved from confident dismissal to grudging acknowledgement of her competence, though his pride made it difficult for him to admit that his initial assessment had been completely wrong. Their interactions had become more professional, though underlying tension remained. The first exercise of the final phase involved a complex multi-day operation that simulated deep penetration missions behind enemy lines. Teams of 4 recruits were inserted into hostile territory with minimal supplies and required to complete a series of objectives while evading capture and maintaining communication with base command. Sarah's team included 2 recruits who had initially supported Webb's criticism of her capabilities, but who had gradually come to respect her competence through direct experience of her performance. The 4th team member was a quiet, technically skilled recruit named David Park, who had consistently performed well throughout training, but had never sought leadership roles or attention. The mission briefing revealed objectives that would test every aspect of their training: intelligence gathering, sabotage operations, personnel extraction, and long-distance infiltration. Success would require not just technical competence, but also the ability to function effectively as a unit under sustained pressure over multiple days. During the planning phase, Sarah's input demonstrated strategic thinking that had continued to develop throughout her training. She identified logistical challenges that others had overlooked, anticipated likely enemy responses to their planned operations, and suggested contingency plans that could preserve mission success even if primary approaches failed. Her teammates now sought her input routinely, recognizing that her analysis typically identified important factors that others missed. The respect she had earned was evident in how they listened to her suggestions and incorporated her insights into their operational planning. The insertion phase of the mission took place during a moonless night that provided maximum concealment, but also created navigation challenges that tested every recruit's skills. Sarah's team was dropped 12 miles from their first objective, requiring them to cross difficult terrain while maintaining noise discipline and avoiding patrol routes. Sarah's performance during the infiltration approach revealed capabilities that had been developing throughout her training, but were now fully realized. She moved through the darkness with confidence and precision that seemed almost supernatural, reading terrain features and identifying optimal routes with an intuition that couldn't be taught. Her spatial awareness and ability to navigate by natural landmarks allowed the team to reach their first objective ahead of schedule and without detection. The successful completion of their approach phase provided an early indication that this mission would demonstrate capabilities that went beyond standard training expectations. The first objective involved gathering intelligence from a simulated enemy communications facility. The target was heavily guarded and surrounded by electronic surveillance systems that would detect conventional approach routes. Success required creative thinking and flawless execution under conditions that left no room for error. Sarah's analysis of the target identified vulnerabilities that the exercise designers had intended to be nearly impossible to exploit. She noticed that the surveillance system had predictable cycles that created brief windows of opportunity, and that the facility's physical layout included features that could be used to mask approach routes if timing was perfect. Her proposal for accessing the facility involved technical skills and psychological insights that impressed her teammates and the observing instructors. Rather than attempting to overcome the security measures directly, she suggested exploiting human factors that would create the opportunities needed for successful infiltration. The execution of her plan required her to approach the facility alone, accepting responsibility for mission success that placed enormous pressure on her individual performance. Her teammates trusted her judgment completely, a level of confidence that reflected the respect she had earned through consistent excellence under pressure. Her infiltration of the communications facility proved to be a masterpiece of tactical skill and psychological understanding. She used the guards' predictable behavior patterns and the facility's electronic systems to create a diversion that allowed her to access sensitive areas undetected. The intelligence she gathered exceeded mission requirements and provided information that would prove valuable for subsequent objectives. The successful completion of the first objective established the pattern that would characterize the entire mission. Sarah's contributions consistently proved decisive in overcoming challenges that would have defeated less capable teams, while her leadership style encouraged maximum effort from her teammates without creating resentment or competition. The second day of the mission brought weather conditions that transformed already challenging terrain into a nearly impassable obstacle course. Heavy rain had turned streams into torrents and made exposed surfaces treacherous for movement. The team faced a choice between accepting significant delays or attempting routes that would test their technical skills to the limit. Sarah's assessment of their options revealed understanding of risk management that went beyond conventional military training. She identified routes that would allow them to maintain their timeline while minimizing exposure to detection. Though these approaches would require technical climbing skills and precise coordination between team members. Her proposal to lead the most challenging portion of their movement demonstrated the confidence her teammates now had in her capabilities. They trusted her judgment implicitly and followed her guidance even when her suggested routes seemed to exceed their individual skill levels. The successful completion of their movement under adverse conditions provided clear evidence of Sarah's leadership abilities and tactical competence. Her teammates' willingness to follow her lead in dangerous situations reflected recognition that her judgment could be trusted in life-or-death scenarios. The third objective involved extracting a simulated friendly asset from a heavily guarded detention facility. This scenario tested every aspect of their training: tactical planning, technical execution, psychological warfare, and the ability to adapt quickly when situations changed unexpectedly. Sarah's approach to mission planning demonstrated strategic thinking that impressed the observing instructors. She identified psychological vulnerabilities in the guard force that could be exploited to create confusion, technical weaknesses in the facility's security systems that would allow for penetration, and timing opportunities that would maximize their chances of success. The execution of the extraction mission required Sarah to function in a command role that tested her leadership capabilities under extreme pressure. She coordinated the actions of her teammates while maintaining personal responsibility for the most technically challenging aspects of the operation. Her performance during the mission demonstrated leadership qualities that had been largely hidden during earlier phases of training. She made tactical decisions quickly and confidently, communicated effectively under pressure, and inspired confidence in her teammates that allowed them to perform at their highest level. The successful completion of the extraction mission with 0 simulated casualties marked a significant achievement that was noted by multiple observing instructors. Sarah's contributions to this success were documented extensively, though the full implications of her performance wouldn't become apparent until final evaluations were completed. Week 15 brought the culminating exercise of the entire training program, a complex scenario that combined elements from all previous phases and required recruits to demonstrate mastery of every skill they had learned. The exercise was designed to identify those candidates who possessed not just technical competence, but also the intangible qualities that would make them effective in actual combat deployment. The scenario involved a multi-objective mission that required teams to function independently for extended periods while maintaining coordination with other units and adapting to rapidly changing conditions. Success would depend not just on individual capabilities, but on the ability to function as a cohesive unit under sustained pressure. Sarah's role in this final exercise reflected the recognition her capabilities had earned throughout the training program. She was assigned to a leadership position that placed responsibility for mission success directly on her shoulders, a level of trust that represented complete vindication of her potential. The mission briefing revealed challenges that would test every aspect of military training: long-distance movement under hostile conditions, complex tactical operations requiring precision timing, and psychological scenarios that would challenge mental resilience under extreme stress. Sarah's approach to mission planning demonstrated the full extent of her development throughout the training program. Her analysis was thorough and insightful. Her tactical proposals were creative and practical, and her leadership style encouraged maximum effort from all team members while maintaining unit cohesion. The execution of the final exercise proved to be a masterpiece of military tactics and leadership. Sarah's team completed all primary objectives ahead of schedule and with performance standards that exceeded expectations. Her personal contributions to this success were exceptional in every measurable category. More importantly, her leadership during the exercise demonstrated qualities that couldn't be taught or measured through conventional training methods. She inspired confidence and maximum effort from her teammates, made tactical decisions under pressure that consistently proved correct, and maintained mission focus even when circumstances created extreme stress and uncertainty. The successful completion of the final exercise marked the conclusion of the most challenging military training program in the country. Of the 48 recruits who had begun the program, only 12 remained. Sarah's presence among these select few represented a journey that had transformed mockery into respect and demonstrated the power of quiet determination over loud criticism. The formal graduation ceremony was attended by high-ranking military officials whose presence indicated the significance of completing such a demanding program. Sarah stood among her fellow graduates with the quiet confidence that had characterized her entire journey, though she remained unaware of the attention her performance had generated among the military leadership. Marcus Webb was not among the graduates. He had been eliminated during week 13 after failing to demonstrate the psychological resilience required for successful completion. His departure had been quiet and professional, though his final conversation with Sarah revealed recognition of her capabilities that he had fought against acknowledging. "I was wrong about you," he admitted simply. "You proved that strength comes in forms that aren't always obvious. I respect what you've accomplished." Sarah's response was characteristically gracious. Everyone here faced the same challenges and pressures. Success was determined by how we responded to those tests, not by any advantages or disadvantages we brought with us. The exchange marked the end of a conflict that had defined much of the early training period, though its resolution provided clear evidence of Sarah's character and the respect she had earned from even her harshest critics. As the graduation ceremony concluded, Sarah remained unaware that her journey was about to take another dramatic turn. The attention her performance had generated among military leadership was about to result in opportunities that would test her capabilities on a much larger stage and demonstrate that her true strength was only beginning to be revealed. The stage was set for the final revelation that would complete her transformation from an unlikely recruit to a warrior whose capabilities would command respect from the highest levels of military leadership. The general who would soon recognize her true strength was about to enter her story, bringing with him opportunities that would prove the full extent of her potential. 3 months after graduation, Sarah found herself assigned to Fort Braxton, a specialized facility where elite military units prepared for deployment to the world's most challenging theaters of operation. Her assignment came with minimal explanation, though the location's reputation suggested that her training performance had generated interest from command levels far above standard personnel management. The base operated under a cloak of discretion that extended to every aspect of its function. Personnel assignments were made through classified channels, training exercises were conducted away from public observation, and the very existence of certain units was known only to those with appropriate security clearances. Sarah's presence at such a facility indicated recognition of capabilities that extended far beyond standard military service. Her initial assignment involved advanced training scenarios that built upon the foundation established during selection. The exercises were more complex than anything she had previously encountered, involving real-world intelligence data and operational requirements that reflected current deployment needs. The transformation from training scenarios to operational preparation was both obvious and significant. Sarah's performance during these advanced exercises continued to demonstrate the exceptional capabilities that had emerged during her initial training. Her tactical insights remained sharp and innovative. Her technical execution was flawless under increasing pressure, and her leadership abilities continued to develop through exposure to more complex challenges and more experienced personnel. The other personnel at Fort Braxton represented the most elite elements of the military community. Their initial assessment of Sarah was cautiously positive, though her reputation had preceded her through informal networks that connected special operations communities. Her youth and relative inexperience were balanced by documented evidence of exceptional performance under the most demanding conditions. After 6 weeks of advanced training, Sarah received orders that would transform her understanding of her military career's trajectory. She was summoned to a meeting with command personnel whose authority extended far beyond the facility level, though the specific purpose of the meeting was not explained in advance. The briefing room contained individuals whose presence indicated the significance of whatever was about to transpire. Sarah recognized several senior officers whose photographs she had seen in military publications, though she remained uncertain about her own role in whatever operation they were planning. General Patricia Morrison entered the room with a presence that immediately commanded attention from everyone present. Her career included deployments to every major conflict zone of the past 2 decades, and her expertise in special operations had earned respect throughout the military community. Her interest in meeting personally with a recent graduate from selection training suggested circumstances that extended beyond routine personnel assignment. Specialist Chun, General Morrison began, her voice carrying authority that filled the room despite being spoken quietly. Your performance during selection training has generated considerable interest among command personnel. The consistency of your excellence and the unique capabilities you've demonstrated suggest suitability for assignments that require exceptional individuals. Sarah maintained the respectful attention that military protocol demanded, though her mind raced with speculation about what type of assignment would warrant personal attention from such high-ranking command personnel. Her training had prepared her for many possibilities, but direct engagement with command authority at this level had not been among them. General Morrison continued, "The briefing you're about to receive contains information that is classified at the highest levels. Your participation in this discussion indicates that command personnel have concluded that your capabilities and character make you suitable for consideration for highly specialized assignments." The briefing that followed revealed operational requirements that challenged every assumption Sarah had made about her military career. The scenarios described involved missions where individual competence would determine success or failure, where psychological resilience would be tested beyond normal limits, and where the consequences of failure would extend far beyond personal or unit-level concerns. The mission profile we're discussing, General Morrison explained, requires operatives who can function independently for extended periods under conditions that would overwhelm conventional personnel. Technical competence is essential, but psychological resilience and decision-making under extreme pressure are equally important. Sarah's response to the briefing demonstrated the maturity and tactical understanding that had impressed her instructors throughout training. Her questions were insightful and focused on operational details that would affect mission success. Her analysis of the challenges involved revealed strategic thinking that impressed the assembled command personnel. The psychological evaluation conducted during your selection training, General Morrison continued, identified resilience factors that are rarely encountered in military personnel of any experience level. The sources of that resilience are less important than its demonstrated reliability under pressure. The comment revealed that command personnel had studied her background more thoroughly than she had realized. Her childhood experiences, which she had shared reluctantly during psychological evaluation sessions, have been analyzed for their implications regarding her suitability for specialized assignments. General Morrison's next statement transformed Sarah's understanding of her situation completely. We're prepared to offer you an assignment that would utilize your unique capabilities in ways that could have significant strategic impact. The decision is entirely yours, though I should note that personnel who accept these assignments typically find their military careers follow trajectories that differ substantially from conventional service. The offer represented validation of everything Sarah had worked to achieve since beginning military training. The recognition of her capabilities by command personnel at the highest levels provided confirmation that her quiet confidence had been justified, though the implications of accepting such an assignment remained unclear. What specific role would I be expected to fill? Sarah asked, her question reflecting the practical thinking that had characterized her approach to military service. General Morrison's response revealed the full significance of the opportunity being offered. You would function as a specialist in scenarios where conventional approaches have proven inadequate. Your assignments would involve situations where individual initiative and exceptional capability are more important than unit coordination or standard tactical doctrine. The description aligned perfectly with Sarah's strengths and interests, though it also suggested challenges that would test her capabilities in ways that training exercises couldn't replicate. The opportunity represented everything she had hoped to achieve through military service, though accepting it would require confidence in abilities that had only recently been fully recognized. I accept the assignment, Sarah replied without hesitation, her decision reflecting the quiet confidence that had sustained her throughout training and the recognition that this opportunity aligned perfectly with her goals and capabilities. General Morrison's response indicated satisfaction with Sarah's decision. Your first assignment will provide immediate opportunity to demonstrate your capabilities in operational scenarios. The mission profile involved challenges that conventional personnel have been unable to address successfully. The briefing that followed revealed operational details that demonstrated the trust command personnel were placing in Sarah's abilities. The mission involved infiltration and intelligence gathering in a hostile environment where previous attempts had failed due to the exceptional security measures and psychological pressure involved. Sarah's preparation for her first operational assignment involved intensive briefings that revealed the full scope of the challenges she would face. The target location was defended by personnel with training and equipment that approached military standards, while the intelligence requirements demanded access to information that was closely guarded and difficult to obtain. The psychological profile of the hostile personnel suggested that conventional interrogation resistance training would be inadequate preparation for the mental challenges involved. Sarah's documented resilience under extreme pressure had been a factor in her selection for this assignment, though the actual conditions would test her capabilities beyond anything she had previously encountered. Her approach to mission planning demonstrated the tactical maturity and strategic thinking that had impressed command personnel throughout her evaluation process. She identified vulnerabilities in the target security arrangements that others had overlooked, developed contingency plans that addressed likely complications, and prepared responses to scenarios that could threaten mission success. The execution of her first operational mission proved to be everything that command personnel had anticipated when they selected her for specialized assignment. Sarah's infiltration of the target location was accomplished without detection. Her gathering of required intelligence exceeded mission requirements, and her extraction was completed ahead of schedule despite complications that arose during the operation. More importantly, her performance under actual operational conditions demonstrated that the resilience and capability she had shown during training translated directly to real-world scenarios where failure carried genuine consequences. Her ability to maintain focus and effectiveness under extreme pressure confirmed that her psychological profile had been assessed accurately. The success of her first mission led to additional assignments that tested her capabilities across a broader range of scenarios. Each operation provided evidence that her unique combination of technical competence, psychological resilience, and tactical insight made her exceptionally suitable for missions that conventional personnel couldn't handle successfully. General Morrison's evaluation of Sarah's performance was unambiguous in its praise. Specialist Chun has demonstrated capabilities that exceed our most optimistic projections. Her combination of technical excellence and psychological resilience makes her uniquely valuable for missions that require individual initiative and exceptional performance under pressure. The recognition represented complete vindication of Sarah's journey from dismissed recruit to elite operative. The mockery that had characterized her early training had been replaced by respect from command personnel at the highest levels, while her capabilities had been validated through operational success under the most demanding conditions. 6 months after accepting her specialized assignment, Sarah received a summons that would provide the ultimate recognition of her achievements. General Morrison requested a personal meeting to discuss Sarah's performance and future career prospects, a level of attention that indicated her operational success had generated interest at levels that extended beyond normal command authority. The meeting took place in General Morrison's private office, a setting that emphasized the personal nature of the conversation that was about to take place. The general's approach was direct and unambiguous, reflecting her recognition of Sarah's proven capabilities and demonstrated maturity. Your operational performance has been exceptional in every measurable category, General Morrison began. More importantly, your ability to succeed in scenarios where conventional approaches have failed makes you invaluable for missions that require unique capabilities. Sarah's response reflected the quiet confidence that had characterized her entire military career. I appreciate the recognition, ma'am. These assignments have provided opportunities to utilize capabilities that might not have been developed through conventional military service. General Morrison's next statement provided recognition that completed Sarah's transformation from outcast recruit to elite operative. Command personnel have concluded that your capabilities warrant consideration for assignments at the highest classification levels. Your psychological resilience and operational competence make you suitable for missions that few personnel could handle successfully. The offer represented the pinnacle of recognition within the special operations community. Sarah's journey from mockery to elite status was complete, though her response remained characteristically understated. I'm prepared to accept whatever assignments command personnel believe align with my capabilities and the military's operational requirements. General Morrison's final comment provided insight into how completely Sarah's reputation had been transformed. When I first reviewed your training records, I was impressed by the consistency of your performance under pressure. Your operational success has confirmed that initial assessment and demonstrated capabilities that extend beyond what training scenarios could reveal. The conversation concluded with Sarah's assignment to missions that would utilize her unique capabilities at the highest levels of military operation. Her transformation from unlikely recruit to elite operative was complete, validated by operational success and recognition from command personnel, whose judgment carried ultimate authority. The scars that had made her the target of early mockery had revealed themselves to be sources of strength that conventional training couldn't replicate. Her quiet resilience had proven more valuable than loud confidence, while her ability to endure and overcome had demonstrated qualities that command personnel recognized as essential for the most challenging missions. Sarah's story represented proof that true strength often emerges from sources that others cannot see or understand. The wounds that had seemed like weaknesses had become the foundation for capabilities that earned respect at the highest levels of military leadership. Her journey from dismissed recruit to elite operative demonstrated that character forged through adversity could prove more valuable than any advantage that circumstances might provide. General Morrison's recognition of Sarah's true strength marked the completion of a transformation that had begun with mockery and ended with respect earned through demonstrated excellence under the most demanding conditions imaginable. The quiet warrior had found her place among the elite, where her unique capabilities would be valued and utilized to their fullest potential.